2 stories ago, Joseph had these so interesting dreams. He dreamed everyone was bowing down to him. He was the ruler, and now he's a slave. He's a slave. His brother sold him to the Ishmaelites, and he has to do what he has to stand in a slave market. And now a man named Potiphar, he buys Joseph. Doesn't seem like his dreams are going to come true. But wait. As Joseph starts to work in the fields and in the house, the master, Mr. Potiphar, he starts to notice something. Everything Joseph does is done well. He works hard and God blesses it. And when he puts Joseph in charge of something, he says, could you make sure this gets done? Then when Joseph has to tell other people, even then it gets done well. Everything Joseph does in the house or in the field, God blesses it. And then Mr. Potiphar starts making Joseph in charge of more and more things. And finally, Potiphar only worries about what he's going to eat. Joseph is in charge of everything. He's in charge of the servants. He's in charge of all the crops. He's in charge of the animals. He's in charge of how things get done in the house. He's the one in charge, and God blesses him. So now he's not at the bottom anymore. He's kind of at the top. But there's a big problem, and that is Potiphar has a wife. And she notices something. Joseph is very handsome, and he has a very strong, good body. And she thinks, I like him more than I like my husband. I wish he were my husband. And so she does something very terrible. She wants to be unfaithful to her husband. When a mother and a father, when a boy or a girl, when they get married, they promise each other, we're going to be faithful to each other. But not Mrs. Potiphar. She says to Joseph, let's pretend we're married, okay? Let's hug and kiss and things like that. Let's just pretend we're married. Joseph says, this is what he said. He said, my master, your husband, he's made me in charge of everything. I'm in charge of everything. The only thing that I can't do is have you because you're his wife. So how could I do this wicked thing and sin against God? But she didn't care. So Joseph said, no, I'm not going to do that wicked thing. I'm going to serve God. The next day, she did it again. Let's pretend we're married, okay? Let's pretend, come on. And Joseph said no. And she did it day after day after day. She started getting angry because Joseph was always saying, no, I can't. I don't want to sin against God. Well, one day, Joseph was in the house, and there were no other servants in the house except for Potiphar's wife. And this time she said to Joseph, yes, you are. And she grabbed Joseph. She said, we are going to pretend we're married. And Joseph said, he just took off his coat and he ran out of the house. Then she was very angry. And she said, help, help, help. And so some of the servants came running and she said, that servant, that Hebrew that my husband brought here, he was trying to hurt me. But I started yelling, and then he ran away. That was a terrible lie. It was not true at all. But the servants, they didn't know. And then at nighttime, when Mr. Potiphar came home, she said, oh, that servant of yours that you brought here, he was trying to hurt me. And so I started crying and yelling, and then he left his coat, and he was going to mock me, and he ran out of the house. When Potiphar heard that, he was very angry. And he said to Joseph, you can't stay here. He didn't kill Joseph. He said, you're going to prison. And now, even though it was not true at all, Joseph had to go to jail, to prison, and those prisons were not pretty places. They were cold and dark. And there Joseph was in prison. He had not done anything wrong. His feet were in chains for a while. And what about his dreams? Looked like they were never going to become true. God was still with Joseph. Joseph still had to believe that God still loved him. His faith was tested, and God made it so that the person who was in charge of the prison, he noticed that Joseph still did everything. He still tried to obey his best and do his best. And pretty soon, that person said to Joseph, I'm going to take you out of the place where you are. You can go and help me. And after a while, he got to help him more and more. And then the servant person said, you can just go free, but you have to help, like not free, but that you can help me in the prison. Because everything Joseph did, God blessed it. Now Joseph is still in prison. Are those dreams that God gave him, are they going to become true? And that's the end of that story.